The Northern Line is notable on the London Underground for many reasons. It includes the oldest section of deep-level tube line, which is also the oldest to be electrified. It includes Hampstead Station, the point furthest below ground level. It also includes the Dollis Brook Viaduct, the point highest above ground level. The longest escalator on the tube network is at Angel. It was the first tube line in South London. The newest tube stations are on the Northern Line. But one thing it isn't is especially northern. I mean, it goes to North London, but it's hardly the only one. It doesn't have the most northerly station, that would be Chesham on the Metropolitan line. It does, however, have the most southerly station, which is Morden. Northern Line feels like a fairly arbitrary designation. Actually, the question of what the line should be called is a rather vexed one. The line has had several names over the years. Come with me through the mists of time to 1890, when the first section of the line opened. This was the City and South London Railway, a deep-level tube from Stockwell to King William Street. At this time, the underground lines were all independent companies, so they generally referred to themselves as railways rather than lines. In 1907, another railway was opened, the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway. This ran from Charing Cross to Archway and Golders Green. It was part of the empire of this channel's anti-hero, Charles Yerkes. This empire, Underground Electric Railways of London, also included the District Railway, the Baker Street and Waterloo Railway, and the Great Northern Piccadilly and Brompton Railway. For convenience, and I suspect to foster a sense of corporate identity, UERL tended to refer to its lines by simplified titles. The Great Northern Piccadilly and Brompton was called the Piccadilly Railway on publicity material, and they adopted the press nickname of Bakerloo for the Baker Street and Waterloo Railway, although it seems to have taken them a while to be consistent on this. The Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway was known as the Hampstead Railway or the Hampstead Tube. In 1913, the City and South London Railway was taken over by UERL. By this time, it reached north to Euston and south to Clapham Common. The new owners planned to combine the City and South London with the Hampstead Tube and extend it at both ends. In 1924, the Hampstead Tube reached Edgware, and the two lines were connected at Camden Town. And in 1926, the City and South London got to Morden, and the Hampstead Tube was extended to Kennington. Now the two lines were one, and the question arose of what to call this new Frankenstein's monster of a railway. Well, initially they didn't bother giving it a single name. The City and South London bit became known as the City Railway, and the Hampstead bit was called the Hampstead and Highgate Line. In 1933, all the underground lines, apart from the Waterloo and City, were taken over by the London Passenger Transport Board. In November that year, the line was given the name the Edgware, Highgate and Morden Line. That's a real mouthful. So over the next few months, they played with shortened versions: Medgway, Mordenware, Edgemorden, Edgemore, and even Tooting Camden, after Tooting and Camden, do you see. In 1934, they settled on the Morden-Edgware line. Even this feels a little cumbersome, so it's fortunate that a new suggestion was about to present itself. In 1935, a proposal was put forward to extend the line further, taking over a number of suburban railways and building extensions. This would have made the already complicated line even more Byzantine. It would have been less a line than an entire network, reaching places like Bushey Heath, Alexandra Palace, High Barnet, and ultimately Watford. A vast swathe of the North London suburbs would have become the Morden-Edgware line's turf. Most of it didn't happen, but it was a serious enough plan that in 1937 it was considered appropriate to rename the Morden-Edgware line to the Northern Line. So it has remained ever since. On the 28th of August 2022, the Northern Line will have been so called for 75 years, by far the longest it's ever held on to a name. Its reason for being called the Northern Line has long since evaporated, and it's also had another southern extension to Battersea Power. There are also those who have suggested that it should be renamed, possibly, to the Southern Line. But I put it to you that its irrelevant name is in the grand tradition of irrelevant underground names. Think about it. All the lines serve the metropolis, and the Metropolitan Line is a line that actually leaves London altogether. There are lots of districts, so District Line means nothing. The Circle Line is no longer a circle. The Hammersmith and City follows the same route between Hammersmith and the City as the Circle Line. Every line enters central London, so there goes the Central Line. The Piccadilly line serves Piccadilly, but so does the Bakerloo. The Bakerloo serves Baker Street and Waterloo, but so does the Jubilee. The Jubilee is named after an event that took place 45 years ago. The Victoria line is one of 3 lines serving Victoria, not including National Rail. The Waterloo and City line probably has the most accurate name, as it only serves Waterloo and the City. But the Northern Line also serves both places. The Overground uses the Underground network, including an entire former Underground line. The Docklands Light Railway goes beyond the Docklands, and don't even try to get to the UAE on the Emirates airline. So in short, the name Northern Line doesn't make sense, in accordance with tradition. I do hope you enjoyed this Tooting Camden Wood tale from the tube. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. Thanks as ever to my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the Edgeware to my Morden. And I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the tube.